Any other helmets we haven't used for this? Okay. Well, we obviously talked recruiting early on, and hopefully you guys got a little bit better idea. You can look behind me. Still waiting on one more, which will be coming up here hopefully during this press conference as we speak. But one, great group of new players coming in here, which I think are great people and have great families. But there's so many people to thank, and we will do more of that tonight. But really want to just thank our coaching staff for their efforts, and being a couple coaches down also during recruiting, and these coaches having to make up for the 2, 3, 4, 5 guys that maybe these coaches had been recruiting. Nobody flinched. They jumped right in and took over whatever other recruits that were left or areas that needed to be hit, and they did that. And one of the things I think we've done a good job of, and it probably showed in this class more than anything, is not just having one guy recruiting a player. We try to recruit with area, by position, crossbreed a little bit, maybe offense, defense. So it's not always the same side of the ball, and obviously I'm involved in that as well. Guys that really helped keep that together: Darren Usher in our recruiting department, our graphics, different things that we do on social media that I feel like we try to do a very good job of. He's really responsible for that. Josh Borgman as well with our videos and creativity. Those guys are awesome, and these guys are 17 years old, so those edits and different things like that we make, they're hard to make. And I think the way we do it and make it to where good where we make it fun, I think these guys really enjoy it. Antoine Murray, a guy that when you get on campus here, obviously he has a huge impact with families, and is being a Bronco, a lot of information, and can really help these guys. Taylor Tharp, actually had to activate him and put him on the road. And so when we had to go see Jake Constantine, the guy that went to saw him was Taylor Tharp, and he walked out of there and had to commit. So he thought recruiting was easy. All right, he's batting 1,000. Brad Larondo, back here kind of holding down the fort with everything going on with recruiting, coaching changes, just everything. He and Brian Wilkinson, those guys are really the ones that leaned on quite a bit to make sure that, everything here of getting, obviously, our weekend set up, having the flights, the hotels, all that, along with getting information on coaches that we were talking to, that we were going to hire or maybe interview or have a chance to maybe cross paths somewhere in recruiting where we would get to meet. All that was going on simultaneously. So with recruiting at night, it wasn't a relaxed time. It was, meeting with maybe a future potential coach at the same time. So it's really been it's been an interesting process for me, to be honest with you, and one that I wouldn't change or trade. And it's taken a lot of time, but at the same time, I think to get to where we are right now, it's really been done the right way and the way it probably needed to be done. So we'll talk more about this class here, but just, as you look at these guys, and, I think you see the D-line was obviously a big need. O-line was a need. Really, when you're signing 25-plus guys, you're making up now for a lot of depth in those areas, and feel like this class really gets us a lot closer to where we want to be when it comes to numbers by position. And, probably the next class will get us to where we actually feel like we're in that mode every year, hopefully, where it's, hey, you lose 2, you take 2. You lose 2, you take 2. You don't want to lose 5 and take 6. That becomes very difficult, and Coach Caldwell really had to deal with that, and all of us for the D-line. And managing 5 or 6 guys, it's hard to do. And I think I've never really been a part of that until this year, and we did a really good job, and so hats off to those guys for that. So with that, open it up for questions.
You're bringing in...
How many years, hold on, how many years have you been doing this? This your 14th year?
14 years, yeah.
Okay, so before we get started, I got this for you. All right, okay. Here, a little jersey for you here. Okay, and it'll be personalized. All right, when it's all said and done. But appreciate you. Right? You've been.
Yeah, we got to get this out on social media. Are you kidding me? There you go. Yeah.
Okay, all right, Max. So seriously, hey,
that one down.
Listen. You and I have been doing this a long time. You've been covering the Broncos. We wouldn't be, and a lot of you guys as well, but I know you're moving on to a new role, and we certainly wouldn't have the coverage or be the program probably through the eyes of the people here if you hadn't been doing that. So really mean that sincerely and appreciate you for all you're doing. Excited for your new role and to read whatever the heck you're going to do. And whatever adventures, yeah. Yes, we'll have some ideas and all that. But with that, all right, fire away on some of the final questions you've got.
You're bringing in something close to 30 scholarship guys, 3 new coaches this year. How much is this going to change the whole feel of this program over the next 6-7 months?
Well, I think it has. I think you can feel that now. The hard thing is, with maybe in comparison to some others, not as much, but quite a bit of change here, and the amount of guys we're recruiting. It's really just been focusing on getting ourselves back up and running. That's been the number one thing. I think anytime you have change, just like when Coach Peterson left and we came in here, I've always been in the mindset that change is good. And having Andy Avalos as our defensive coordinator, what an awesome opportunity for him. And I remember being in his shoes. I was a tight ends coach, and you're hoping for an opportunity that you've proved yourself, and maybe you get that chance to coordinate. That's always a goal. And I would say this, for our players and coaches around here, we're not like that commercial where, hey, we're settlers and all that. We don't do that. We talk about, really attacking the future, growing, developing, and getting better. And I think that's where opportunities come from. Great chance for Andy. Coach Ambrose coming in here. I've known of him for quite some time. He and I met at an airport at a baggage claim once before. That's about the only time we ever had an encounter. But when he came on his interview, he and I spent an entire day together. I picked him up for breakfast and instantly was absolutely just impressed with him. And he had my attention the entire day, and I just thought, that would be a great fit. And he and Andy had actually known each other and worked together. Zach Hill coming in here as a co-coordinator and coaching our quarterbacks. Obviously know his background. He's worked with some really good ones and done a great job. Coach Huff, being a co-offensive coordinator, a guy I've worked with that understands our system. I think the one thing people forget, he was a special teams coordinator. And for an offensive line guy to go be a special teams coordinator, and the years he did it, to be one of the better special teams units in the country, it says a lot about just him as a teacher. Kent Riddle wouldn't be the offense we are without him. And he does special teams, but a guy that's in that room constantly keeping us on task and what we're doing. Junior Adams, Lee Marks. So to me, that was it's stressful at times, and at the same time, when you get guys like this in your program and you see them and you're around them, it's like, all right, what an awesome opportunity for these guys to make a difference and make a change. Hadn't 30-some guys recruiting at the same time. Like I said, it was in the morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., meeting or talking with the coach, recruiting the entire day, then 10 o'clock to midnight, getting on the phone and having another conversation of when can we meet, when can we see each other, how do we get you on campus, coordinating that with the coaches so I'm not the only one making the decision. You got to be around these guys so the entire staff has an evaluation in the new coaches that we hire. So it was it's been 2.5, 3 weeks of a blur, but as we get our staff established, as we have all these guys lined up, committed to us, it's I'm really proud. Let me say this: I'm probably more excited about moving forward with what we have now than I've ever been before. So it's re-energizing, to say the least. Do we have a new guy?
Here we go.
New guy on the boat? All right. Good job, fellas. And our last and certainly not least, Curtis Weber, D lineman. So how'd it go? Good?
Great.
Yeah? Did he have the whole hat deal going?
USC had
All right.
Washington State, USC.
Nice job. Okay, thank you guys. There we go. So there you go. Great job. We'll see you. That was the last one that we kind of knew about that had a plan to kind of go about his way. So, and with that, our coaches battled with some really good schools, and I think the guys that we're on because of who they are and their academics, and Curtis being one of them, he's a guy that I can say this. Not just the position coaches. Dr. Custer was instrumental in getting him. That was a big part. He is his mother and Curtis both very high on the academic side of things at Boise State. It was very important that they understood what this program really stood for, not the football. She really probably could care less. She knew football was good. What's her son getting into academically and as part of the standard? And Dr. Custer and Kurt Absey were always at a lot of our functions, but Dr. Custer was really, to me, the number one trigger man in that, in talking to him. So that's an awesome get for us.
To get to this day, does it take a physical and mental toll on you just to get up here? And I mean, we saw the war room and saw your schedule. Do you keep track of the states, the visits, the mileage that you put on yourself, the tires, and your body?
Yeah, I have blonde hair, so you really can't see all the gray in it, but I notice it. Yeah, let me say this. It does. That's part of it. What's exciting about it, though, is maybe a little lack of sleep in some areas, and it probably had to do with some of the coaching, too, just the changes and have to deal with, all right, talking to people from that part. If it's just the recruiting, maybe a little bit less, but the fun part about it is when you actually get into the high school, the homes with these kids, then, the energy level's up because this is new for them. That's the one thing. This is, 14 or 15 years of doing this, and they get one time. And I always try to remember that. This is the one time they get. We're going to do this again next year. They get one shot at it. And, to always just keep that in mind and try to go in there with the mindset of this is the first time for these guys and try to make it your first time as well and just really enjoy the process of it. So, and along the way, hey, you run into other coaches. We got a chance to go see Dante Dion. We were 2 blocks away. We walk into our hotel. Ed Lamb, who coached here, an NFL scout, was sitting there. Andy and I are like, what are you doing? He said, right down the road is Dante. He's doing a great job. We walk down the hill, and we're over there, with a bunch of NFL scouts and players talking to him. So you get to do some things, too, that you don't normally do, and I think that helps with just the whole energy of it. But yeah, recruiting's a process, and when you get to this day, we had one guy that we didn't get. We had a lot of other guys that we had to battle for, and when you win those battles, we're all competitive. Yeah, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it.
You got a couple of guys, a couple of really high-profile recruits flip late here the past couple of weeks, but you had a plan B and a plan C in place. Talk about having that in place and being able to activate it and go right out and get replacements.
Yeah, one thing in recruiting, you're dealing with people. These are people, and they have dream schools sometimes, and not all of them grew up, dreaming about Boise State. But as the years have gone on, hey, this has been a school they started to follow, and obviously you make that connection and it becomes a fit. Some of the guys that we lost, that's we knew there were some schools that would be ones that would be hard for them to turn down if that happened. Now those schools hadn't been in the picture, and that's why, hey, we were doing a really good job with them. And I'll say this about our kids. Not one of our kids that was committed and decided to go somewhere else was just like, hey, I'm out. It's hard. You think about a 17-year-old, and the one thing about their families too, they actually called me. That's what I do appreciate. And I appreciate the fact that these young men were the type of people we thought upstanding, and they call, hey, coach, hey, decided that this is going to be a better situation for me. Respect that. And you know what? These guys are 17. They're going on to live their lives. We've all had a chance to do it. Not mad at them. Hey, just glad we're a part of the process. Disappointed, obviously. But that being said, they're also young people. And their minds can change. And that when you have good players, other schools are going to want to come after them. So you have other players that, hey, this is a great option. This is the dream school. And sometimes you have to sit there and wait. And those guys are in that situation like, hey, you know what? Hey, when it does come up, I'm there. I'm waiting. And if it does, I'm on it. And that's really the situation we had put ourselves in with, in my opinion, two really good players. I don't feel like we lost a lot when it comes to the physical ability of these guys. They're different, but that desire, the chip, the attitude to want to be here makes up for a lot of things in my mind.
On the D line, I mean, you had so many spots to fill, and not only did you fill them, but when you look at the quality of players you filled those spots with, in particular the two today that you guys maybe knew about, but we didn't. What can you say, I guess, just about the talent level you brought in on the defensive line, the 6 guys, and all the travel miles that Coach Caldwell probably put in, and
Right.
And it's kind of like what you had with the DBs last year, where you had to do a huge thing at once, and the 2 guys today, I guess, kind of put a nice bow on your group.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we do have very good quality on the D line, and the one thing about this class, I think they kind of built a bond. They had a bond on social media of, wanting to be Broncos, building relationship. I think that had a big part to do with it. Really other players helping the recruiting process because they obviously want to have great teammates around them. Opportunity to play. If you look at our D line, over the past several years, we've obviously had some very good players. We've been fortunate enough to have some guys go on and play at the next level. And the development here on the defensive side, on the D line in particular, has been very good. And so I think guys saw that. I think the other guys around, to be honest with you, these guys all know who else is coming in with them. And I think they look at that like, yeah, I want to play with that guy. That guy's a good player. I'm a good player. I'm going to be in this position. Hey, we're going to be one of the more, you could say that, dominant D lines if we go out there and do our job, but we're going to be able to do that together. I think that's exciting for them. So the number didn't really scare anybody off like you would think. It was more about, because they're all different positions, and the way we play our D line, we can move guys around. They've seen the rotation. I think that really became something like, hey, we're getting a chance to come in here and be that next group of guys to really come in there and be the ones up front, making a difference.
A lot of these guys went to really successful programs, whether it was Long Beach Poly, San Clemente. I know Happel's team, I think, won 14-1. Constantine was 15-1. And how important is it for these guys to come from successful programs and are used to winning?
Yeah, I think it's huge. Because how did they win? All right, they had to be disciplined. All right, there had to have been structure in the program. Probably had a good weight program. All right, so they knew how to work in the weight room. Guys that were good students, because they're not going to be playing for their high schools if they're not taking care of business. They're good off the field, or they wouldn't be playing. I think it's just, at the high schools that these guys have come from, a lot of their structure is similar to what they have here. It's another level, but they understand it. And we kind of talk about football guys. Yeah, when they're on the field, when they're out there in the meeting rooms, they're on during the games, these guys are locked in, they're focused, and that was one of the things that showed up when they played. And for the most part, a lot of these guys were big reasons why their team had success. And so, yeah, the 14-1s, the championship games, what does that breed? Success breeds success, and I think that's something that they look at here and say, hey, we have a chance to go there, play for championships. I've been in the this is what I want to do. And that becomes a big attraction from the football standpoint.
A lot of talk about there being some late battles for these guys. You got a story you can tell us, an anecdote about someone you had to really kind of fend something off the last couple days?
Well, yeah, there's been a few, and not to talk bad about any of their schools. And let me say this: it's not I think there's really good men in this profession. I do. Obviously, everybody's trying to fill their needs. But yeah, we had a receiver there in Texas, in Big 12 country that we battled Oklahoma with, and he wanted to be here, and they obviously want him there, and our relationship with him, our relationship with his family, our relationship with the coach, that became the difference. And I'll say this, that was a very difficult trip for me to get to just go to the high school. It was about as bad as it could be to possibly get from where I was to get there and really come right back to where I was. But did it, and Coach Caldwell was there with me, Coach Ridd, and we got into the high school, and it was great. Got a chance to sit down with the head coach, and establish that relationship, and really ended up being the difference when it was all said and done. So, even that 3.5 hours of just being there and building that relationship and that trust factor, and him knowing this is the best place for him to be, made a huge difference. Now, yeah, we've had, as of late, in the last 24 hours, some phone calls going on there that, hey, you sure about this, sure about that? And, our guys have held strong. But I also know that that's not something that we don't prepare them for. Like, hey, there's going to be some tactics at the end of it. You just got to stick with what you believe, where you want to be, and for the most part, our guys did.
You talking early in recruiting when you went to not in the last couple of weeks?
No, this was in the last week.
Okay.
Last week of recruiting is when that happened. Early on, yeah, it's a battle the whole time.
No, I mean when you went to see the high school coach.
Yeah, it was just his last
No,
week.
okay.
Yeah, it was just recently.